Yashi Shiratori was a Japanese man whose life story was immortalized in the famous Japanese novel, Gap-bok. In 1933, he was arrested on suspicion of murder and robbery and was facing a possible death sentence. However, he escaped in 1936 by picking the lock on his handcuffs by using a wire. Shiratori was recaptured twice more and successfully escaped on both accounts. In 1942 he climbed through a vent in the prison ceiling, and in 1944 he escaped by slipping out of his handcuffs. In 1946, Shiratori was arrested a fourth time and received a death sentence. Awaiting his execution, he sawed through the floorboards of his cell with a piece of sheet metal, used the bowl to dig his way to freedom, and successfully escaped. In 1948, he admitted to a police officer that he was an escaped convict. He was sent back to jail with a 20-year sentence but was paroled in 1961. Shiratori died of a heart attack in 1979 and became known as the man who escaped prison 4 times. Moondyne Joe. Joseph Bolitha Johns, famously known as Moondyne Joe, was convicted of larceny in 1849. He was conditionally pardoned in 1855 but was arrested again in 1861 for horse theft. He escaped while awaiting trial but was recaptured and served 3 years in jail. In 1865, Joe was arrested once again for killing an ox. He made 4 escape attempts and was successful 3 of the times. He was put in solitary confinement, but even that did not stop Joe, and he escaped again in 1867. Inevitably, he ended up back in prison until he was granted early release in 1871. He died in the Fremantle Lunatic Asylum in 1900. Jack Shepherd. Jack Shepherd was a notorious thief and robber who was extremely popular amongst the poor. He was arrested for pickpocketing but escaped his cell by making a hole in the wall and removing iron and wooden bars from the window. In 1724, Shepherd was sentenced to death for burglary. Once again, he escaped, but not for long. After being imprisoned, he managed to slip off his handcuffs and pick several locks. He then used his blanket to slide off the roof and escape. He was arrested 2 weeks later without a fight and was sentenced to death by hanging. Even facing the noose, Shepherd had a plan. His accomplices would revive him after the crowd dispersed. Not surprisingly, that plan failed. After Shepherd's death, his infamous escapes inspired many plays and novels. Nachman Farkash. Nachman Farkash was an Israeli boxer who turned his passion for sports to crime. In 1956, he was arrested for an armed robbery and was sent to jail. He escaped 2 years later but turned himself in shortly afterward. He was arrested a couple more times for violence, break-ins, and theft, but he managed to escape from the jail every single time. After 4 escapes, he was imprisoned once more and spent 7 years locked up. He decided to go back to boxing in 1969. In the following decade, he was arrested multiple times for violence and drug-related crimes. By the end of the 70s, he gave up the crimes, married, and had children. He was found dead in 2014. Brian Bo Larson. Brian Bo Larson has the highest number of prison breaks with 22 successful escapes. Yes, 22. Larson grew up with an abusive and alcoholic father. He started his life of crime at the age of 8 with petty theft. He robbed the gas station when he was 13 and was put in foster care. Larson started his long list of jailbreaks in 1989. He escaped prison a further 14 times between 1990 and 2000. In one dramatic escape in 2000, Larson stole a car and wrecked it during a police pursuit. Abandoning the vehicle, he continued on foot into a forest where a police dog eventually found him. Multiple escapes later, in 2014, Larson was on the run again. This time he was arrested after the police found him with prostitutes and with drugs in his possession. He broke out of jail for the 22nd time on December 13. 2014, and became known as the Escape King.